people have heard of the microbiome, your gut health, the gut-brain axis or gut-brain connection, and don't actually know what that means. And a lot of people know what that means, but they don't know what that means to them exactly. Everything either is or has a microbiome. Microbiome is a community of microorganisms made up of viruses, bacteria, archaea, and fungi. And microbiome is everywhere. It's in the air that we breathe, it's in the water, in the ocean, and in lakes and rivers. It's in the earth. It's on and in every living being, including your pets and your kids and your partner and yourself. We don't just have one microbiome either. We have microbiome on the skin. For example, there are as many microbes on our thumb as there are people in the entire United Kingdom. We have microbiome in the vagina. We have microbiome in our digestive tract, from our mouths to our esophagus to our stomachs, our pancreas, our colon, our rectum. And all of these microbiome affect pretty much all of the functions of our body. Your gut microbiome plays a role in your digestive health, of course, your hormonal health, your metabolism, your mental health. Pretty much any function of your entire body is affected by the microbiome in your gut. And when your gut microbiome is compromised, it becomes imbalanced. There's an overgrowth of the bad gut bugs or an undergrowth of the good gut bugs, and this creates inflammation. And this inflammation creates permeability of the lining in your gut. That lining that's there as a barrier to keep any toxins, parasites, chemicals, plastics, undigested food, things like that from going through into the rest of your systems, from your digestive system. And when that happens, we call it gut dysbiosis. If you've heard of people talking about the gut-brain axis, they're probably referring to the vagus nerve, which is the longest nerve in your body, and it begins at the stem of your brain and innervates pretty much every organ in your entire body. It's a bi-directional communication between the brain and your gut. More than 30 different neurotransmitters and 50% of dopamine, about 90% of serotonin is all produced is produced in the gut. And these are things we mostly assume are produced in the brain, but they're not. So you can imagine if things are not right in the gut and 90% of your feel-good hormone is produced there, what a number that can do on your mood regulation, on your mental health. 20% of the thyroid hormone, T4, is converted to T3 in the gut also. So our gut microbiome also really impacts our hormone balance, which then regulates things like our energy levels and our libido and our appetite and our general moods. Leaky gut, or this gut dysbiosis, can lead to thyroid problems, digestive issues like gas, bloating, loose stools, irritable bowel syndrome, anxiety, depression. There's a long list of maladies that are associated with gut dysbiosis, including things like Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, autoimmune disorders, which are basically caused by inflammation, like lupus and fibromyalgia, and it's been linked to generalized anxiety disorders and very serious mental health disorders. So like I said, the list is very, very long, but because your gut microbiome is literally located right in your gut, anything you eat, anything you drink, or anything else that you ingest into your digestive system is going to have an impact on the health of your gut microbiome. The good side of that is that means that there are definitely also foods and beverages and things that you can ingest that will promote and maintain a healthy gut microbiome as well. And lifestyle choices, which we'll get to afterwards. This means that even if you already have an imbalance of the bacteria or the microbes in your gut, you have too many of the bad gut bugs and not enough of the good ones, or you already have some issues with the permeability of the gut lining, you already have leaky gut, you're already experiencing gas or bloating or fungal infections or headaches or irritability, brain fog. I mean, again, the list goes on. But let's just say your gut microbiome is upside down and you need a reset. It's totally doable. Of course, the more damage that's done, the longer it takes to turn that around. But any changes that you make that we talk about today will start having an impact by tomorrow. You might not feel 100% for a few weeks, but there are plenty of things you can do to immediately feel some changes. One of the first things you're going to want to do is make sure that you have optimized your digestion. And something I recommend to every single one of my nutrition clients who is suffering from symptoms of gut dysbiosis is that they ingest digestive bitters. And digestive bitters are essentially just bitter foods that activate the signal that tells that your digestive system that it's time to eat. So if you've ever eaten anything bitter or sour and notice that your cheeks kind of go in and your mouth starts to water a little bit, that's exactly what's happening. That's what I'm talking about. So this can be foods like radishes, it can be bitter greens like arugula or mustard greens, dandelion greens, endives. It can be olives, kimchi, citrus like orange rind or lemon or lime. There are plenty of bitter herbs as well. And you can buy a tincture already made also if you can't eat these things or don't have the time or the will or the want to eat bitter foods 15 minutes before you sit down to a meal. You can actually buy tinctures that are pre-made, and then you just take a few drops shortly before you eat your actual meal. And the ingredients in these tinctures are essentially the same ingredients that you would find in tinctures for cocktails. And the reason for this is because these bitters were created for cocktails that people drank to help their digestion. The next tip might sound silly, but it's really, really, really important and really effective. And that is simply just to make sure that you are chewing your food. The more you chew your food, the less work your stomach has to do when it gets there. And I promise you, most people are not chewing their food enough. And it is recommended that you chew every bite of food 30 times before you swallow it. I promise you're not doing that. I promise I'm not doing that. But it's really, really important. The less you chew, the more work your stomach has to do, the more time that food sits in your digestive system, the more time it has to ferment and back things up and cause inflammation. So it's really, really important to chew your food well. And I promise you, if you do that, that alone will make a difference. I very, very, very strongly urge you to avoid taking any kind of antacids unless it's absolutely necessary and your doctor or other medical professional has confirmed absolutely that the cause of your discomfort, your acid reflux, GERD, etc., is overproduction of stomach acids. And the reason for this is that proton pump inhibitors like Rolaids, Tums, Zantac, Pantaloc, etc., these antacids neutralize your stomach acids. And not only do you need those stomach acids to digest your food effectively, but that stomach acid is our first line of defense against any harmful bacteria or pathogens that we might ingest into our digestive system that might kill off the good bacteria in our gut, cause inflammation, which will then cause gut dysbiosis and even infection. And a lot of the time, people who are experiencing symptoms of acid reflux, it's not because they are producing too much stomach acid, People often just assume that that's what's going on, but often it's just because your actual digestion is not optimized. And often it's because you're not making enough stomach acid.
Ginger famously encourages efficient digestion, which means that it helps food not linger too long in the gut, and this prevents fermentation and constipation. Ginger also relieves nausea and gas and bloating, and it is a safe and effective remedy not only for motion sickness but also for morning sickness in pregnant women. There are many herbs that can help aid digestion and promote gut health and relieve the pain and discomfort that comes with digestive issues. These are just a few examples. The oil of fennel seed stimulates the secretion of digestive juices and enzymes that improve your digestion. Fennel also acts as an antispasmodic and anti-inflammatory and helps prevent constipation, indigestion, and bloating. Chamomile has been used medicinally since ancient Egypt, Greece, and Rome. It's well known as a calming herb used for menstrual disorders and sleep issues, but it also reduces the acidity in the stomach and inhibits the growth of bacteria that contributes to ulcers. Because chamomile is a digestive relaxant, it's used to treat various gastrointestinal disturbances, including flatulence, indigestion, diarrhea, motion sickness, and nausea. Licorice might be an acquired taste. I know not everybody likes it. I love it, and it is effective in treating heartburn, nausea, indigestion, and stomach pain, and it increases the mucus production in the stomach, which soothes the stomach lining. Chicory acts as a prebiotic, meaning that it feeds the beneficial bacteria in your gut. It promotes digestion and regulates appetite and supports regular bowel movements, weight loss, and improved blood sugar control. It's also an excellent replacement for coffee if you're trying to cut back or eliminate coffee altogether, because much like dandelion root, chicory has that sort of dark, roasty, nutty flavor, but it doesn't have the caffeine. The mucilage in marshmallow root coats the inner lining of the stomach and esophagus, protecting it and preventing burning sensations that are caused by heartburn and acid reflux, and it can help relieve a number of digestive issues, including diarrhea and constipation.
Nutritionally speaking, the best thing you can do for your gut microbiome is to eat a lot of fiber. Your microbiome loves fiber. So fruits, tons of veggies, and whole grains. I'm telling you, the best thing you can do for your microbiome. And beans as well. Beans are packed with protein and full of fiber, and so good for you. So beans, pulses, legumes, so chickpeas, black beans, navy beans, all the beans. Eat the bean. Eat your beans. Eat your veggies, eat your whole grains, and eat your beans. Replace any foods that are high in saturated fats. So that means processed foods, usually fast foods, fried foods, any animal products, dairy products. Dairy products are the worst. They're extremely inflammational. What? I'm just making up words. Inflammatory. They're the worst for inflammation, dairy. Saturated fats. Oh yeah, so that means vegetable oils, not including olive oil, but other vegetable oils, and definitely tropical oils like palm oil and coconut oil. I know for a while there we went crazy thinking that we should all consume heaps of coconut oil and swish it around between our teeth and rub it all over ourselves. Well, you can rub it all over yourself, but it's basically just saturated fat, coconut oil. So if you can avoid saturated fats and switch them out for not inflammatory fats, like the good fats, like nuts and seeds and olives and avocados, you'll be doing yourself a huge favor, and it will make a massive difference for your gut. Same thing with refined flours and white rice. So white bread, white pasta, white rice. if you can swap those out for a brown rice, whole grain bread, whole wheat pasta, millet, bulgur, quinoa, any of that stuff, so good for you, so important. Don't cut the carbs out completely. It's literally the main food for your brain. So please eat your carbs, but switch out your empty carbs for carbs that are full of fiber and nutrients. And also are not, but I already forgot the word that I made up. Inflammational? Yeah, that's it. You're not gonna want, but you are gonna want, because you love yourself and you care about yourself and you wanna feel good. You're gonna want to eliminate or reduce as much as possible refined sugars. And the thing about that is, those bad gut bugs who love to overpower and outweigh the good gut bugs, the little bad gut bugs who cause lots of inflammation and disruption and gas and bloating and emotional upheaval and all kinds of other rotten stuff, thrive on sugar. They love sugar. When you're getting a strong craving for sugar, especially in the evenings, those little guys are just throwing a tantrum. So when you say to yourself, I need something sweet, if you can, just stop yourself and be like, do I need something sweet, or do those guys want something sweet? And if I give them something sweet, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen is your blood sugar levels are gonna spike, which you definitely don't want. And then afterwards, they're gonna crash, which you also definitely don't want happening. And your inflammation levels are gonna spike, which you also don't want to have happening. And also, it's gonna kill off the good gut bugs that you really, really need. Same thing with alcohol. It's really hard on your gut microbiome and causes a heap of inflammation. So just be mindful of how much you are drinking and how often, and make sure you're not overdoing that. I know that intermittent fasting is all the rage, and I'm not against fasting if it's done properly. I promise you I am not against it. But what typically ends up happening, and I'm sure I've talked about this, if not here at Sweet Vegan Living, then on the Sweet Vegan Spills the Tea podcast, what happens is people will fast for several hours, but then they will gorge themselves, first of all, on foods that are not helpful to them or helpful to them. But second of all, they'll eat too much of it because they're so hungry because they haven't eaten in so long. But when they have this big meal on this empty stomach, what ends up happening is all that food overwhelms your digestive system, overwhelms your gut microbiome, and you get constipation, gas, bloating, things get backed up and start to ferment, hence the gas and the bloating and stuff. So I am not a huge fan of fasting, only because most people don't know how to do it in a way that is helpful to their body, not because I think it's bad. I don't think it's bad. I think it can be really helpful and useful. But we can talk about that some other time. I talked about inflammatory foods like refined flours, refined sugars, saturated fats, but there's also foods that are considered anti-inflammatory foods that can be helpful to incorporate into your diet. So that would be things like leafy greens and mushrooms, dark chocolate, cherries, probiotic fermented foods like sauerkraut or kimchi, as well as foods that are rich in omega-3 fatty acids like nuts and seeds and avocados. I mentioned earlier that there's also some lifestyle, for lack of a better word, choices that we make that can negatively and positively impact our microbiome as well. It's not only the things that we eat, there are other external stressors that can affect us tremendously. And that includes things like pesticides and chemicals, whether it's on our food or in our household cleaning products, our toiletries, our makeup, our toothpaste. It's really important to be mindful of what poisons we are exposing our body to. Spending more time outside. I mentioned earlier that microbiome is in the air and in the waters and in the earth. And one of the things that we can do to help support our microbiome is to expose ourselves to a variety of other microbiome as well. And that includes people and pets. So Dr. Zach Bush, who is one of the leading specialists on microbiome, among other things, he's triple board certified and does incredible work in the farming industry, agriculture, and soil regeneration. I mean, he's amazing. Anyways, he says that the ideal would be if you ate your meal outside in bare feet in the soil while petting your dog to expose yourself to as much variety of microbiome as possible. Speaking of sitting down to eat, it can be really, really hard for people to just do that. Never mind the outside in your bare feet in the dirt while petting your dog thing. The thing is, it can be really, really hard to just sit down and eat a meal, not on the go, not in your car, not in front of the television or on your phone, but actually just sitting down to intentionally and mindfully have a meal, whether you're alone or not. I eat breakfast and lunch every day sitting down at the table, but for some reason, even I find it challenging in the evenings not to end up just sitting in front of the television while eating supper. And I don't think there's any harm in doing that from time to time, but I know that it's not healthy to do it night after night after night. And not long ago, I had a nutrition client talk to me about some habits that were not serving her, and we talked about that. That was one of the challenges she was facing, and she was trying not to eat in front of the television at the end of the day. And so we talked about it for a while to try and understand what was going on with her. And her dining table, much like many of us, was a multi-purpose area, and it was cluttered and full of all kinds of junk and things that needed to go somewhere, things that were just coming in the house or whatever. So she cleared off the entire table and decorated it, set it up as a place that she would actually want to sit down and eat. And she is good at sewing. She's a seamstress, so she also made some really cute placemats for the table, and she set the whole table up so that when she would come home, it would be an inviting, cute, romantic place for her to sit down and eat her meal. And I think that, like a lot of habits that we have, one of the best things that we can do to help us make the changes that we need to make is to make the good habit inviting. To make the good habit more enticing, so that we're lured over to that. It's not a burden, it's not work, it's not something that we're reluctantly dragging our feet over to, but it's something that is calling us. And I don't know if you have things like that in your day-to-day life, in your routine, or if you have any suggestions or tips for other viewers to help set some healthy habits, but I would love to hear about it if you do. As much as our mental health is affected by our gut microbiome is affected by our mental state as well. So stress management tools are really, really, really important, whether that means meditation, exercising, just taking time to be quiet and alone with our thoughts, breathing exercises, therapy, just having a good network of people around us so that we feel supported. This is really, 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 really important. I definitely would recommend that you avoid taking painkillers and anti-inflammatories unless you absolutely need them. If you're in horrible pain and inflammation is just unbearable, by all means take them. But they are really hard on your gut, really hard on your gut microbiome, just your stomach in general. A lot of people will notice that shortly after they take them, they just have terrible stomach pain. So like I said, if you absolutely need them, definitely take them, because having too much inflammation is a whole other problem on its own. But if you're just in the habit of taking them every time you get aches and pains, like just cut that out. You don't need that, and you don't want that. I promise you, you don't. My last tip to you is to eat a variety of different foods. Remember before when I said you have these little gut bugs who love sugar? Well, you have trillions of gut bugs, and there's such a variety of them, and they all love different foods. They all thrive on different things. So if every day at lunch you eat a salad of iceberg, tomato, and cucumber, that's great for the gut bugs that thrive on that, but you're starving the ones who really love, I don't know, spinach, bell peppers, and mushrooms, let's say. So it's really important to remember that you have trillions of these guys who all eat a different diet, and you want to try and feed as many of them as possible to, again, avoid having an overgrowth of one kind and an undergrowth of the other. So one fun way to, or a fun challenge, I guess, that you can give yourself if you want, that can help with this is just to try and eat one new food every week that you've never tried before. I'm giving you homework. Just try that one thing.
Most cultures in the world have some form of fermented foods on their traditional menus, from German sauerkraut to Mexican escabeche, Japanese miso, Korean kimchi, Ethiopian injera, and of course our very own highly celebrated sourdough bread, which apparently originated in Egypt, actually. To make kimchi, I usually use half of a medium head of Napa cabbage, and I will chop it into bite-sized pieces, or a little bit bigger, because everything will shrink a tiny bit as it ferments in the brine. I massage the cabbage in kosher salt and then cover it in water and let it sit and soak for at least 12 hours and up to about 24. The recipe, of course, as always, is on sweetvegan.net. Once the cabbage has soaked, you rinse it thoroughly and then you drain off the excess water. You can also just gently squeeze out any excess water from the cabbage and then return it to the bowl. I slice some green onions, not too tiny because again it will shrink and soften as it ferments, but not so big that it's going to be uncomfortable eating it. I will cut some daikon radish into matchsticks, and then I will grate ginger. You see, these ingredients are great for your digestion, even on their own. I'll also grate up some garlic, and then you can either make the seasoning paste on the side, or you can just toss the seasoning ingredients directly into the cabbage. So that would be the garlic and the ginger, just a tiny bit of sugar, and then some Korean chili flakes. Original kimchi has a fish sauce or shrimp sauce in it, so if you want, you can add some seaweed for that little bit of seafood flavor, but honestly, I don't really notice that it's missing. I almost never remember to add the seaweed. I didn't have gloves in the house when I was making this, so I just found some Ziploc plastic bags and put them on my hands, because I find that chilies burn the skin a little bit if you handle it directly with your bare hands. And what you want to do is toss the cabbage and the seasoning paste together until it's really well combined and the cabbage is thoroughly coated with the mixture. Protecting your hands, by the way, won't only avoid the stinging sensation, but also staining your hands. The pepper is quite red. Once it's really, really well combined, you're going to pack the kimchi tightly into a clean kimchi container or a glass jar with a tight-fitting lid. Try and make sure that the liquid from the kimchi raises higher than the cabbage, if at all possible. And then let it sit in a cool, dark place for about 24 hours. Open the jar to let the gases escape, and then reseal and refrigerate for at least 48 hours before you eat it. It's best after about a week, and you can refrigerate it usually for up to about a month.
Thank you so much for watching this video. As always, I really appreciate it, and if you haven't already subscribed, I hope you will consider doing that. And I hope you will also enable the notifications so that you know when new videos come out. If you're a Patreon subscriber, I cannot thank you enough for believing in the work that I'm doing and for helping to make this channel possible. It means so much to me, you don't even know. Take really good care of yourselves. See you soon.